Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today at the Capital Club Sustainability Advisors event. We are very fortunate to have three major stakeholders that can talk about circularity in organizations today.
My name is Priya, Sarma. I'm with Unilever. I'm the head for sustainability for the region and also what we call corporate affairs. I also chair the Circular Packaging Association that we just set up last week. I have Omar out here who sits on the board with me. So I'm happy to talk about it a little more.
Hi, I'm Rajesh Garg. I am the Group CFO for Landmark Group, but also I lead sustainability. And so I've started I actually lead sustainability, financial and environmental. Been here in Dubai and with Landmark for 8 years, and prior to that had a long career with Procter & Gamble and Cadbury Schweppes and Tesco across the globe. So very happy to be here and bring whatever learned across the years to make this big shift that we all need to do.
Hi, I'm Aditya Shah. Thanks to all of you all for being here. I'm the head of circular economy investments at Creek Capital. Creek is a climate impact investment firm based out of the DIFC. What we do is offer fully financed decarbonization solutions to the commercial and industrial segment. So essentially, provide decarbonization solutions across energy efficiency, cooling, circular economy, and temporary power solutions with zero investments required from the C&I segment, but generating operating savings right from the onset. So what we offer is sustainable solutions which are more commercially feasible or economically cheaper than the conventional solutions which are being used. So whether it is power, whether it is cooling, whether it is water, wastewater, or any other segment. So thank you. Look forward to this discussion.
Priya, you mentioned earlier on about the official formation, the Circular Packaging Association.
We've launched actually just last week, but I think you've been hearing about it for a long time because we've actually been in existence for the last 4 years, not as an association, but as a coalition. So in January 2019, the same kind of group of companies which were brand owners like Unilever, Pepsi, Coke, Nestle. We have Aditya, McDonald's, along with retailers like MAF, Carrefour, and Dow and Baruch, as converters and things like that. We, along with knowledge partners such as WWF and GPCA. So we came together in January because we realized there is a need to drive, for us to just come together and start doing work on this. So our first order of business at that point of time was, of course, to figure out what is the landscape, what are we dealing with out here? So we commissioned a third-party study with a consultancy called Frost & Sullivan. And the results of that were really the business case, for us to actually move forward. But we weren't just interested in the theory part of it. What we also wanted to show was that, the enablers that we are recommending are actually implementable, especially with regards to packaging circularity. So we did a pilot with EAD and Tadweer in Abu Dhabi, where we got waste from commercial sources such as IKEA, so a little bit of the clean waste, but also from the Al Dhafra landfill. So it was also the mixed waste. And we got it converted and then put back into logistical equipment. So like pallets and things like that sponsoring companies then brought back. So that's a little bit of, and of course, we didn't just stop working there in 2020. We did a lot of work during COVID. We continued to keep focus. We did work with EAD on the bottle return scheme, engaging with them on that, giving feedback. Also the single-use plastic that Abu Dhabi finally came out with, the policy framework for that. 2021, we actually worked with Veolia for a pilot that they were launching with regards, which was focused on consumers and collection of waste via an app, door to door. So that was the work that we did. And then 2022, we started working. We were invited by the Circular Economy Policy Council to work with them. So we've done a lot of work, including our CEOs in the last year, working with MOE, with MOCA. And then I can come to this later, but this is not just the work that we've done here. We've done work in Jordan, with the Ministry of Environment. We've done work in Egypt. Our members have done work in Egypt with the informal sector. That's a very important sector and one that we ensure that we want to include where needed. We cannot exclude them because it's a source of living for them. We've done work with, we signed an MOU in Qatar last year, with the Supreme Council for Delivery and Legacy. We've signed an MOU with Bahrain. We have a similar working group made up of members like ourselves, same companies, but a lot more local ones also in Saudi Arabia. That's another key market. And there were just so many barriers that we faced. So last year, we finally landed at the door of the Dubai Chamber of Commerce, and within a month, they kind of found our solutions.
Rajesh, can you tell us about what the challenges you faced to introduce circularity within your organization?
Absolutely. I think it's very interesting how, it's a very different perspective for Unilever, who would probably do a lot of the work on their product in their global R&D product design, while Middle East would be a very large consumption center. So different, but then coming to what, obviously Landmark is a Middle East company, right, headquartered in Dubai. And while everyone knows us as a retailer, actually we are a brand company because what we sell, are 95% of product are designed by us. We get them made, the entire where the cotton is grown, where the polyester is procured, what factories, how energy efficient they are. The entire supply chain is controlled by us. We don't own it everywhere, but essentially we are able to make a big shift. And that has been, if you think about it, the biggest thing we've done. So we've been on this journey for some time. For example, our brand Splash has been on this journey for over 5-6 years. And today, 90% of their products are responsibly sourced. And in reality, it's a moving target. The more we learn, we find we can be even more responsibly sourced. But essentially, like this jeans from Splash, all the jeans are denim is only procured from suppliers who recycle the entire water, 100%. So I think, or all the cotton Splash uses will soon be from better cotton, which has its own global standard. So I think when we went deep, we built a full carbon accounting model to understand where the entire footprint of our company is. And we built it bottom up. And I think that was the biggest thing to even understand, because everybody just thinks of cars and trucks and aviation and thinks this is, I got my Tesla and I'm done. And reality is, every shirt, every pant, every piece of product we buy is having a huge impact. And the best, most environmentally sustainable shirt is the one that never got made. The next best is probably when the shirt went back to make a shirt. Today, we are doing things, but it's going back and making carpet backings or other types of things. It's very difficult to make a shirt from a shirt or a shoe from a shoe, but it's possible. Those technologies are coming. So, but coming back to the question here, the biggest challenge is awareness, not just with the customer, the consumers, but even within our entire leadership teams. So we kicked off, we built a full framework, sustainable products, sustainable operations, sustainable customers. And getting 90 of our top leaders for each of our business units together and getting them to realize what it is, what is the impact they are having, was probably the biggest task. And that was what we've achieved, because now no longer is the conversation, oh, it's going to cost me this much. It's all about how do we seep in more sustainable products. Splash, Max, one by one, all our brands are on that journey. They are on timelines. They are asking suppliers to come along. So our first attempt is to raise their standards upstream in China, India, Bangladesh. But then eventually, if they don't meet, we are ready to give them up as well.
So hearing from you, right, means it's a very complex amount of work to be done. Why start it? Why do it? What's the motivation?
Well, I think it obviously starts with the shareholders and owners. They are conscientious. They don't have any public. They're not listed publicly. So there is no external pressure at all. It comes from within. I think, to do the right thing. But obviously, there's also a impending risk, right? We can all sit here, and then eventually you'll drop off the cliff if your product. So I think in the end, yes, they are conscientious. We all are. I mean, at the leadership, but we are also we are capitalists. So it's a survival thing. I think in the end, we will not be there. It's just that we don't know when. The tsunami of customer behavior change is coming. It's showing up in all the surveys, but it's showing up first in them claiming that they care about the environment, but it's not converting at the point of sale yet. Most people are saying, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, if I take one more cheaper pair of jeans, it's not going to end the planet. And that's the whole, tragedy of commons, that someone else will fix it. So that thing hasn't come, but it will come. I'm very confident. The next set of customers, all ages, I think it's a myth that only the Gen Zs are. I think everyone is conscientious about what is the impact.
Aditya, so you guys, if I look at circularity, right, and I define it as being that basically that you take a raw material goes into production and to production, to manufacturing into a product, end of life, right? When it's no longer useful, right? Then the components can then be broken back into raw materials again. They can be reprocessed in to make another product itself, right? And I believe that's something that you guys involve in financing. Could you explain some of the criteria you look at before when you're looking at investing in these type of activities of circularity?
Sure. So, I mean, just to generally look at the investment criteria that we invest in across industries. So the industries that we invest in are renewable energy, water and wastewater treatment, waste management and recycling, agriculture, cooling. So inherently infrastructure type of assets. And the model we've adopted is to decentralize the infrastructure, to make it a lot more sustainable. So, and we've done that successfully in the solar space, we've done that in the cooling space, in the energy efficiency space. We're about to do that in the water and wastewater treatment space. And this is a model that we'd really like to adopt even for the circularity space, where we set up captive circular economy or circularity projects with the industries themselves. So for example, if it could be Unilever, it could be Landmark, it could be anyone else who has, the conviction in the solution and is willing to sign long-term offtake agreements. Because what we offer is fully financed solutions. So we invest in the solutions ourselves. All we need is predictable revenues over a period of time. So, we don't want to take commodity risk, we don't want to take revenue risk. What we want to do is take the risk on performance or take the risk on delivering the product. So that is something we are very happy to do, provided we have a counterparty who's willing to sign a 10, 15 or even 20-year agreement with us to take the product that we're making with them. So if we have a solution, it could be for recycling plastic, it could be for fabrics, it could be for any other material. As long as we have a customer or we have a client who's willing to partner with us in a long-term journey, we are very happy to offer these kind of solutions.
Priya, how important do you think is design to ensure the success of circularity?
So that's a good question, because I think it's very important to understand that packaging by nature is not just recyclable. You can't really just recycle it because packaging is made up of so many components, right? So design for circularity, I think, is probably one of the most important starting points, and that's what I think Rajesh was talking about. Most companies, including my peers, we're very cognizant of the fact that, yes, while we have to design for circularity to ensure that we are, the product is recyclable, whether it's a black bottle, which is technically, the machines can't read it. So for instance, our Tresemme bottles, we've changed that, right? Redesigned it so that it's actually readable when it's getting sorted. But there are certain other products, like for instance, deodorants. It's a bit difficult because of the roll-on ball, and we're trying to find solutions for that. But in this region, for instance, almost 92% of our products are now recyclable. We say recycled ready because we don't have the infrastructure, right? But so a lot of us are cognizant also of the fact that we have to reduce the amount of plastic. Plastic is a great material, yeah, but there is a problem with it. Yeah. So while a lot of us have committed to the collection, yeah, a lot of us as peer companies, we've said we will collect as much plastic as we put into the market and divert it from landfill and reuse it. A lot of us have also made the commitment to reduce it. Yeah. And what we call the better plastic, at least, is Unilever, which is the post-consumer recyclate. So we have to, that's how we're going to reduce the use of virgin, by putting back more. But I think the design for recyclability is probably difficult. It requires a lot of investment, but it's a very important starting point for industry.
I think, as far as I'm aware, my little circle, I think you're the only person I know who's both the chief financial officer and the chief sustainability officer of any group, okay, right? How do you balance the fact, right, that the cost involved in trying to do the right thing, you know? How do you balance your two roles together?
On a lighter note, you say, oh, in the boardroom that this is going to be very expensive, and they just throw the thing on you saying, now you do it. So, but in all honesty, actually, there are some other groups, some of our largest peers, I think Inditex as well, the Zara group also globally, the CFO is where sustainability rolls in. And I'll give you 3 reasons, which maybe we've internalized it, but one is, finance is ubiquitous, right? We are touching every part of the business, from design, buying, operations, supply chain, customer, stores. So it's a great function to understand the impact, right? To be able to track it, to monitor it. Second is reporting. In the end, it will require authentic reporting of numbers internally, externally. So there is not, some guy sitting in a marketing department not trying to take shots at any function, but essentially not understanding the gravity of making a claim, right? I know from safety and all, companies are very careful now, but in the initial phase, there is this tendency to make claims which are not authentic, and you can't. So again, finance is best place for that. And as I said earlier, the most important is the affordability, pushing the organization to take that investment or hit, or obviously find cost neutral solutions. Finance is best place. But I would say actually the more we are getting deeper, or me and my direct team, some are here as well, there is a lot of low cost or zero cost neutral solutions. The low hanging fruit is enormous. In fact, up to now, a lot of what we are doing is actually saving money, and which is great, because then that can go towards further investments, right? So I think I think it's a great position to be in, to be able to, and that takes away a lot of the, mostly you'll find the CFOs are saying, sorry, we can't, afford this. And also I think that problem is taken care of.
Aditya, how do you see the region now progressing in terms of encouraging true circularity? I mean, one of the problems you have here is that many companies say they actually do recycling, big whatever facility, all that, right? But in reality, they don't do that. How do you see the region itself developing to try and encourage true recycling? At the same time, how are you going to manage your investment portfolio, right, to actually make sure it actually happens? Offtake is one, but you can make sure actual recycling happens.
Yeah, very, very good question. So what we've seen over the last maybe decade or 2 decades is, I'd like to put environmental services, which is where circularity would fall, in the same bracket as the other utilities, which is water, electricity, and cooling, the 4 main utilities. And I think for the longest period of time, the environmental services industry has been playing catch up with the evolution of the other utilities. And one of the reasons is, I think what this industry has kind of been lagging with is the regulatory push. So, create a level playing field. So a lot of initiatives that we hear from, both these people on the dais are voluntary. There is no requirement for them to do that, which means that there is no level playing field across the industry. So there is no additional motivation other than, having that as part of their DNA. If you see the example in some of the other countries or some of the other regions, that, the same countries, the same international players are a lot more sustainable in their operations in other countries because they are required to be. They've eliminated plastic from logistics because they're required to. So there's no reason why they cannot do it here. The only reason is that there is no level playing field. So obviously, it comes at a cost. And if that cost is not consistent across all the players in the market, there is less incentive for everybody to actually play part in that. And then comes to the other aspect of, how do we bring this in? So regulation can be in many ways, and one of the ways which has been extremely popular in creating a level playing field is extended producer responsibility, which in turn, forces companies into design thinking, or, to create products which are more circular. If you have responsibility to make sure that, either they're disposed of in a certain manner, so there are different ways this can be done. And, there are so many industries which have done this successfully, whether it is solvents, whether it is oil, whether it is plastics, whether it is tires, end-of-life vehicles, batteries, there are a number of industries where circularity has been adopted very, very well with the right regulatory framework in place. So there's no one size fits all for all industries or for all geographies. But I think a big starting point would be to bring in that extended producer responsibility in some shape and form.
So you're absolutely correct. This is something we've been advocating for the last few years, because we're very clear. In order to make this journey equitable, you've got to have everybody participate. So I hope I'm not jumping the gun by saying, Ajit, EPR is coming. Yeah, it's gonna come. So I think it's important. And of course, we've got to ensure that the industry is ready. It's not a tax that the government wants to put on us. It's just they want to ensure that everybody's on that journey together, and regulation is probably the most important thing that will ensure it.
So my biggest concern usually with extended producer responsibility, right, is primarily making sure the players actually use that to invest into the actual recycling facilities. Right? There have been a lot of talk previously. There was, I think, in UK, they found items where there was EPR that was there, and the items after the guys had claimed it were shipped to Africa. Okay, so I think it's important, but EPR is very important. EPR is really, really important, and make sure the actual players itself, right, actually do it. That's how you have this whole entire process of making it sustainable. That's my only concern when I see when I hear about EPR itself. Where do you, last question for the audience, right? I'll start with Aditya first, right? Where do you see the region progressing, right, in terms of next 5 years, and where do you think could be the major roadblocks, and what can be done to overcome them to make circularity a way of life in organizations?
So one of the consistent, I wouldn't say demands, but requests, or is to make it more expensive to just dispose waste to the landfill. So the landfill fee, which essentially is the first step towards converting waste into a resource. So unless you cannot convert waste, you can convert a waste into a resource, and the only way you can do that is to attach some sort of value to that. Today, for the longest period of time, or till recently, you could just send waste to the landfill, which had a ripple effect in generally how the waste was collected and disposed of. So lack of segregation at source has been one of the biggest pain points when it comes to circularity or recycling, because all of this has no value. And the moment you assign a value to it, you see that it has a ripple effect towards other industries or the entire ecosystem, which starts then treating this as a resource, and then you see multiple recycling initiatives which start coming up. And today feasibility of these resources is the biggest challenge. So one is obviously there is no value to that, and second is scale. So obviously in terms of scale, we are relatively in a smaller geography compared to some of the other countries which have seen successful implementation of recycling skills. But again, this can be overcome, and I think this has been overcome in many other ways. Like you see that in, say, plastics, for example, where the problem of scale has been addressed, and you're able to import some of the raw material, albeit not as waste, but at least at a certain amount of pre-treatment before it comes in. So these kind of steps which address value and scale are key to a successful transition towards a more circular economy.
Rajesh?
See, I think the EPR is absolutely a must, right? But I would like to say that in the end, if we're just doing things to push the problem somewhere else, then it's not going to solve it. So, for example, what Priya, you just said, better plastic, which is post-consumer use plastic, right? So, what percentage of your products are going to have post-consumer use materials is also very important. If you're going to just figure out a way to cheaply dispose of, and that then it's somebody else's problem, fine, that some of it will have to be that. But in the end, unless we create the proper circularity or circular loop that I'm going to pump back materials that I'm taking from the planet and bring them back into my product, we will not solve it. So this is it has to go hand in glove with the extended producer's responsibility, that you have to also have products which have post-consumer used, genuinely circular products. I think that's where the whole loop will close.
Priya?
I think both of them covered it off, but I think I had spoken earlier about the business case, right, when we had done our study, and I never shared the numbers with you, but effectively, of course, the issue really is the fact that given the high rate of growth, right, in the UAE, on an average, we tend to produce 68% more waste, so that's about 38 to 40 million metric tons per annum, of which and a lot of it is commercial waste and construction waste. Now, of that, about 6.5 million is the municipal solid waste, of which 1.1 million, which is about 16%, is plastic. So, and if you look at the breakdown, so the opportunity, what is the opportunity? So if you look at the breakdown of the different types of plastic, you look at PET, HDPE, LDPE, and PP. If we are able to divert 75% of that from landfill, which is the UAE's ambition, and recover a yield of just 60%, the potential revenue per annum for the UAE is 800 million per annum. And that is actually based on some 2019 prices of PCR that we had looked at in the global market. If you look at the price of PCR today in the market, it'll go up to 1.3 billion. So, I mean, we know how focused, especially the UAE is and now Saudi is, on this whole area of environmental sustainability. Packaging is a key area globally. There is also, by the way, a big focus now globally on pulling together a treaty, like you have the climate treaty, the Paris Agreement. There is now a big focus on pulling together a treaty on plastics, on how do we have a global kind of a regulation, so there isn't this dissipation, every country is trying to do what it can because this issue is global. So they're now trying to figure this out. They had, I think, the first 1 or 2 meetings last year in Africa, and then Uruguay, I think, last year, and the third one is coming up. So I think there's a lot of work that is happening, especially in our region. The UAE is really serious about it, as are now other players. You look at Saudi, Egypt, and packaging is a big part of this. So I'm hoping that this really accelerates very fast.